Peter, what a ride has been the last 9 years.
Yeah, it's been really fantastic and incredible. And I'm very excited to talk about it now.
Yeah, I mean, let's get directly into it. How we started this, why it happened.
We started Refurbed because we think the circular economy has to play a much, much bigger role than what it does right now. We think that we have to live more circular, and technology is a big building block in all of this. Technology evolves so fast, and we're using it only for a very short period of time. And when we started Refurb, we felt that we have to change this, and we wanted to be the catalyst in all of this.
And I mean, today is our birthday, and I think it's always a great moment to a bit zoom out and talk about it, because in the end of the day, sustainability is about the long term and the long term game in the end of the day. So I think it's really important that we also today try to talk about honesty and what we learned, what we could do better, and what we achieved over the time. So I'm really looking forward to have this conversation with you. I think it's our first time podcast. So really looking forward to how the conversation goes today. I mean, also zooming a bit back to the time before Refurbed, I still remember like more than 9 years ago when I was coming out of university. I think we had some similarities there, of course, as we studied together. But for me, it was like such a different topic. Early 20s, mid 20s, young first job. I worked at Amazon and still remember when I was working there at the key account manager in Germany. Got my first touch point with refurbished products when I launched the Amazon Renewed program, which of course I think was a really important aspect for the journey now to being at Refurbed and founding Refurbed with you together. But also the frustration realizing, this big giant there is not really doing it because of sustainability reasons. And I think, this frustration in my first job was a bit similar than your first job, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, exactly. Right after Shanghai, I started at McKinsey, worked as a consultant for big companies, and I helped big companies become bigger. And while I learned a lot there, it was not fulfilling for me because I always wanted to use my energy and my skills for something that really creates positive impact, that creates value for society. And I didn't feel like I could live up to this promise and also this responsibility that I felt inside of me. And then, the two of us met again over dinner, and then we discussed what we wanted to do.
Yeah, and I think also like the Shanghai times were, really special, if I remember correctly. Student times, always fun, always enjoyable. But also I have to say that I don't really expect that, this moment of time is really a dominator for the whole future for us. And I mean, looking back now, more than 10 years where we know each other, over a decade, I think in our age group, quite a long time, which is really special and allowed us now to build this up. And I know I also still remember this dinner time when we had here in Vienna, probably a bit more than 9.5 years ago now, a bit more than 9 years ago, if I remember correctly. And we talked about it, and it was such an important moment. What do you remember still the moment where we had the dinner?
Yeah, I think it was really special because we both talked about our passions. You talked about the refurbished industry, which I knew relatively little about. I talked about marketplaces because I was working for marketplaces and was very passionate about that because I think it's an amazing business model. And then I think after the second beer, we said, hey, actually we have to combine our two passions, leave behind our sorrows in our current jobs, and do this together. And I still know the table we sat in at this Chinese restaurant, and I still remember this moment, and I had this goosebumps because I felt, hey, this could actually work. This could really be a big company. And now, 9 years later, turned out that we were right.
Yeah, quite a coincidence, like starting in Shanghai, having dinner at a Chinese restaurant in Vienna, and then founding the company. And I mean, I think like, 6 weeks or 8 weeks after we had this dinner, we already founded the company, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, exactly. We were all about speed already back then. Very quickly, we founded the company. We built this first prototype of a website, got the first sellers on board, and very quickly had the first customers. Along the way, something very important happened as well. We got Jürgen on board, our third co-founder. And the three of us, I think, had the success so far we had because we were very complementary. Each of us had very different skills, different strengths. And the combination of the three of us really made the work in the beginning very successful. And I think also by now I can still see how the company works. If you just look inside the three of us, how we work together, I think is mirroring how the company works together. And that's another fascinating thing that I learned over the last few years and I didn't expect when we founded the company.
I mean, the founding team probably is one of the most important aspects of creating a company. And I also have to say, I cannot be more lucky with having you both as my co-founders. So I think this was the main foundation. But also when we started the company, I think we also learned quite early that sustainability is not really a niche, right? It's something that is here to last. But at the same time, we also realized with the first customers we had that there's always a bit of a miss of trust and the question, does it really work, these refurbished products? Because the majority of the society was aware about any refurbished products. They know new products, they know used products, but this new product category in between was not really well known. So for us, it was really about a systematic change that we had to create within the society with our products. And I mean, also the action that we took, I still remember when we had the evenings in your flat, which was kind of our first company office, your living room, when we had the calls with our customers and literally called them down to understand why they purchase the products. Can you maybe elaborate a bit on this experience of calling our customers?
Yeah, I mean, the first call was super weird. Imagine you call a stranger that just bought a phone from a website and you tell them, hey, I actually founded the website and want to talk to you about it. So the beginning was very strange, but I think we called the first 200 customers. And it was such an important building block of our understanding of the problem we're trying to solve. And to this day, I still, work on the knowledge and the beliefs that were built through these conversations. And that was such an important thing. And, to every entrepreneur out there, I have to tell you, this is the most important thing to do. Understand your customer, understand the problem you're solving, because only through that, you can build a really strong business and a really long-lasting one.
And I mean, next to our customers, I think we also had, to convince our partners. I mean, of course, probably a bit of a topic on a marketplace where you have chicken and egg problem. And maybe you can also elaborate a bit on the partners and investors, which we had to convince on the journey of building up Refurbed.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, we as a marketplace, right, we have two sides. We have professional sellers who sell the products through our platform to consumers. At the beginning, we thought consumers, are very important, but we very quickly realized that actually the supply side is very, very important, and even more important in the beginning, because we needed great products with great prices on the website. And so it's very important to build a platform that is appealing and attractive to sellers. And then through our early successes, we were actually able to gain interest from investors. And in the beginning, we were able to grow very quickly, obviously at a very, very small scale. But we were able to convince investors, and through that, actually, after a couple of months, we raised the first funding round, which ultimately also laid the foundation to more growth, more people in the company, and taking things much, much further. One thing that I also think is always a very interesting aspect of founding a business is actually your immediate surroundings, so what your family says and your friends. And I'm sure if you remember, Kilian, but what did your parents say when you said, hey, I'm leaving Amazon to found a business?
I mean, for us, I think like in the German culture, but also specifically for my parents, I think everyone was at first totally risk averse and was like, you shouldn't do it. You have a safe job. You earn good money. Do you really want to go into this journey? But then after they saw my passion as well and, my motivation of doing this, also, I think our business model is so special because we're really mission driven. We do something positive for the planet. And I think this also drove so much positivity in my family and friend circle that then they were really positive and wanted to support me. How was it for you?
Yeah, it was. I think my parents were actually very supportive early on, because especially my mom comes from a very entrepreneurial family where people, are running small businesses. At the same time, there was, I think, not a lot of understanding of what refurbishment means and if this really works and if people are really interested. But these conversations also helped me, again, shape the understanding of what we're trying to solve, right? Because I got very honest feedback from my family, and that was very important to understand how people really think about the refurbished industry. But yeah, it was sort of a mixed thing of, support, but at the same time, will this really work? And I know that a lot of people sort of outside of my family didn't really think that Refurbed would ultimately work.
Yeah, I mean, like my biggest learning was also that people didn't really believe refurbished could be better. Yeah. So we really had to build proof to showcase that it's true and that is the case.
How did we do that?
I mean, I think like in the first place, it's really about showing that the products are better than new products from a different perspectives, right? They are more sustainable, they are high quality. We also had the warranty. And I think something really important for us in the beginning was a 30 days free test period. Because a lot of customers, they think, it's cheaper, it's more sustainable, it has a warranty. So where's the catch? And I also understand it, because normally everything like this would be There has to be a catch. There has to be like a downside of it. So for us, was this 30 days test period was allowing us to show customers, just try it, no risk involved. If you get the product and you don't like it, you can send it back and you get your money back, free of charge. And the outcome was, in the end of the day, that the majority of customers were so surprised that it really looks like new. I also still remember that a customer called us and asked if we accidentally send a new product to him because it looks like new, it functions like new, and that has to be a mistake from us. And I think this showcased for me what a big opportunity we have, because we're building a totally new market that didn't really exist in this point of time.
Exactly. And by now, these things sound like the standard, right? You get free shipping, a free return, you have 30 days free trial period. Back then, it was actually very revolutionary and people really thought this was something new. And what I love about our business is that we started all of this in day one and we didn't change it. We did not look at, maybe it might be better for us as a company if we would actually charge for shipping and stuff like that. We actually did not do any of that. And I think it's great to see that we had hunches in the beginning that actually proved to be very successful in the long run.
When you think about like your main reasons for founding the company, you mentioned the entrepreneurial spirit, right? But also from a sustainability aspect, what was most important, also motivating you to really creating a company about refurbished products?
Yeah, it's just this insane amount of waste that we are generating. It's unbelievable how much stuff we throw away across all categories, but especially within electronics, it's so incredibly inefficient. If you know me well, and everybody in the company will smile now, because for me efficiency is so important. And it's just so inefficient to produce something. You get resources from all over the world, you ship them to China, you build a product that is tiny, then you ship it again across the world, somebody buys it, they use it for 2 months, maybe 2 years, then it lands in a drawer for a couple of years, and then it goes to a landfill. It's so stupid. Like, this system is so stupid, and it has to go better. And the circular economy is the answer for a much better system, because you can do, a similar process, but many, many times with a much better outcome. But how do you think about it?
I totally agree. I mean, for me, the personal passion was that looking outside on this world right now, you have climate change, which I personally believe is the biggest threat we have as human society. So we have to do something to change this. And as you stated, it's clear that if we have products produced which are there and then are in the cupboards of our households, they're not used and they all contain really valuable resources. I think also my personal passion and drive is to change this, to make refurbishment and sustainability, circular economy, the new normality and not a niche, which it was in the past. So this is really, I think, something which we want to change and do our part of making this happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the study that you said, there were actually a couple of very interesting findings. One is that if we take all the resources of the smartphones that we cannot use anymore, we could make more than 1 million gold wedding rings. So there's actual gold in the drawers of people's homes, right? And I talked to the researcher that the study, and we basically joked and said, everybody at home has a small gold mine because there's gold in your drawers. And it's crazy because people don't understand the material value of all of this stuff that is lying around us. And obviously one part is recycling, but what we want to do is actually a step further, right? You could completely change the consumption behavior of people and we'll completely change industries. And what we have to do is start from the design, where, for example, right to repair is a big moment to make products more repairable, then get products after the usage into the circular economy, refurbish them, give them a second life, a third life, a fourth life. And then at the end of the day, if they're really not usable anymore, have proper recycling, get all of the materials out, and through that, ultimately create new products. And this is the circle that we have to do, and this is not optional, right? This is not something, it's not a fancy dream of you and me. This is something that we have to do as a society. E-waste isn't trash, it's lost value.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. And I think what is so important for us as well is we cannot drive the change alone, right? And of course, we as a company, I think we try to be a forerunner in this regard of sustainability, about circular economy. I think our amazing team, which we have at Refurbed, is having the same passion and really wants to change something and do their part for a better planet for the future. But we also require on the political side change, right? And I really see that Europe tries to go in this direction. There are some first really positive signs. I mean, the right to repair is one really important aspect. which now also in summer comes into effect. So which hopefully results in much more mobility of products. Eco-design is another topic where the design of a product has to change for manufacturers, because currently the business models are built on linear economy. And this is how they optimizing their revenue and their money and their profits. So we also have to create regulations which requiring manufacturers to live the circular economy, which enabling businesses like us, but also many of the other businesses across Europe to be more circular. And I think this is something where we as a company are so passionate about and really trying to do our part of public affairs work and doing our pieces of changing this regulation. But I also believe that also our investors, for example, they have a huge focus in this field. Or how do you see this?
Maybe on the public affairs, because I know this is a big passion of yours. You put a lot of effort and work into this, which I think is extremely important for us as a company, but also for us as a society. Do you want to talk maybe a bit more about that? Do you have a bit anecdotes? What does it mean to do lobbying? Because we all think lobbying is this bad word, but lobbying can also be a big driver of good.
Yeah, I mean, politics, I think, is a really special field. I also have to admit, I never put my toe into politics before I started Refurbed, and kind of taking a bit over this field in our company. And sometimes it's really difficult because politics is always moving in the direction where the majority of voters go. And what we saw over the last couple of years, the circular economy was a really important aspect shortly before COVID, also on the European agenda. But then COVID happened. Of course, health was the biggest focus. Then the wars happening around us, which also, again, moved a bit of the topics of stability towards security. And I understand this, of course, but the long-term biggest risk that we still have is climate change. And so we have to change something. And when I'm in Brussels and regularly talking to policymakers, they are all aware about it, but I think sometimes they have difficulties to really grasp the direct threat that is in front of us and what we really have to change. But as I said before, we are now starting to see the first results of our work. And I mean, it's not only our work, it's of course a bit of the industry work. A lot of companies which are working in a circular economy having the same goals of moving towards circularity in general perspective. But this, I think, is so important for us to do our part there. And sometimes it takes time. And we know that politics always takes a lot of time. But I think we also want to invest the time now, because it's not just about us and our generations, also about the future generations. And I mean, if there are children on the planet, and you have a son, for example, I think for you it's even more important than for me yet. But I think it will be also really important in the future as well. When you have children, it's even more important to create a planet where people love to live, right? And I think this is something which we really want, and also which I believe our mission showcases. And maybe you can talk a bit about our mission as well that we have Refurbed.
Exactly. What we want to achieve is to enable consumers to live sustainably. Because, to your point, we believe that we have to solve climate change. What you just talked about politics also makes it very clear that we cannot wait for others to solve the problem. All of us within Refurb, but I think also everybody in the society, we need to take our own steps. And what I love about Refurbed is that we do that, right? What we do is we enable people to live more sustainably, and through that, they're actively solving climate change. And this is an incredible force of motivation. Everybody that works at Refurbed is really happy to put in the work, and sometimes it's long hours and hard work, but people are very happy to do this because you know what you do it for. It's not to my earlier point, make big companies bigger. It's to really drive change in society. And this is something that is also incredible to see that it actually works, right? When we started, we were 3 people. We sold a couple of phones for a month. Now we sell millions of products in a year. We have millions of customers across 12 markets. We have a team from, they're so complementary, different nationalities, different skills, different fields, right? From tech to marketing, supply, finance, customer service. And all of that is extremely important, because the way we think about Refurbed is as a circle. And this now might be cliche, but we really believe that how we grow as a company is like a circle. And we call it the flywheel of growth, where we believe that everything we do as a company, if we get everything to be done a bit better and better and better, the whole company just works better and better and better. And through that, we just grow faster and faster. And that's why it's amazing to have such a great team that is mission driven and works really hard for a much bigger purpose and impact than just for shareholder value.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think what we want is not more tech. So when we talk about growth, we do not want more tech, we want better tech that lasts.
Yeah.
This is kind of the goal that we're having, and want to change the industry in this regard, because I think it's not just about growth in the way of more and more and more. It's not about more and more consumption. It's really about how we can do a better consumption in the future, how we can be a more sustainable consumption, because sadly we won't stop consuming. I think specifically in the Western society, we will always consume something. So we really have to rethink the way how we consume and creating smarter ways of consumption. And I think this is something which we really want to create, and really want to change it, how it works in the end of the day.
And what do you think are the barriers to that? Right? What are the barriers to this bright future?
I think like the first big barrier is the understanding and awareness of customers. So we still see after 9 years now that customers are, like, a big part of society is still not aware about refurbished products. So a big amount of customers are still wanted to buy a new product or buying a used product, and then understood or figured out during the journey that there are refurbished products which combine the benefits of both. So I think education is really an important aspect still nowadays. But also, the policy work that we are doing plays an important role, because manufacturers are not incentivized to work on circular economy. So we have the big problem about software updates, for example, which are not supported for devices after a couple of years, which means our partners, which are doing an amazing on refurbishment and repairing the devices, exchanging components which are not working, coming still to a point where the device cannot be used anymore because security updates are not supported from the manufacturers. So I think these are a couple of examples where we still see clear barriers for the industry, which we want to fight as a company, which we are doing, but also on the policy side, and of course also in strong collaboration with the society and with our customers. Do you have any other perspectives on that?
Yeah, on a customer view, what I think is really fascinating is that the motivation for customers to buy refurbished has not changed. We talked about that we called our first 200 customers, and still to this day the reasons for buying refurbished is the same, and the reasons are it's price and sustainability combined with quality, right? And quality is a lot on trust and making sure that the products work really well. And this is something that we as a company worked on a lot over the last few years, and we made big strides, and we were very successful in making the products much more durable and increase customer satisfaction significantly. But at the end of the day, it's really for customers, hey, I want to do a good deal for myself and want to do the right thing for the planet, right? Mm-hmm. The sustainability part is something that is very emotional for people, where it creates a positive feeling for them, hey, I'm doing the right thing for the planet, and at the same time I save money. The combination of these two things is what makes it very powerful and very interesting for our customers.
And when we're talking about let's say growth milestones that we're also focusing on, that we want to achieve, what are the the main ones that you would mention today?
Yeah, it's luckily we have really big numbers by now. We have many millions of customers across 12 markets. Since foundation of the company, we sold products worth more than 2 billion euros. Right, so it's billion with a B. And it's very hard for people to really grasp this number. But as I said, it's nearly 10 million products that we sold over the last few years. And through that, we've been able to reach millions of people and really changing their customer behavior. Mm-hmm. And this is what we want to achieve, right? It's not just buy refurbished once. Mm-hmm. It's really changing the behavior. And what we see is when people get these products, they're very happy with it, and then they change the behavior and buy much, much more from us. So we see a lot of customers coming back and, starting maybe with an iPhone, then they have this iPhone, they're happy. Then their partner, their parent or their girlfriend or their husband say, hey, I actually want to have the same thing. So interestingly, a lot of people buy a very similar device after a few months, and then they buy maybe a laptop, then they maybe buy a tablet, because, as you said, we need a lot of stuff as consumers, but if you buy it from Refurbed, you can actually do it with a good conscience and save money at the same time, and this is a winning strategy for a lot of people.
Yeah, and I really like also the numbers, right? I think it's really a lot that we have achieved already. And looking to the moment when we started, and right, I still remember the weekend when we were at the lakeside, and we were celebrating that we sold 19 products, I think, the whole weekend. And for me, this is so weird still saying this, because nowadays it's happening in a couple of minutes that we're selling 19 devices, right? But I think this also showcases a bit of you're standing at one point in the beginning of your journey, and this is a huge success factor, right? And then you're growing, and of course the team grows, the business grows, and then you're coming to a point where we're now talking about close to 10 million of products that we have sold since the founding of the company. And I think the next to this, financial numbers or units that were sold, I think also on the sustainability aspect, one for me so important KPI is also looking at how much better is it to buy a refurbished product than to buy a new product. And really thinking about that one individual device and purchase decision of a customer changes the way that the impact on the planet is really positive. So we did a study with the Fraunhofer Austria Institute where 80% is reduced if you're buying new to refurbished products. And I think this is something which is so special, and where I'm also really proud of what we have built, because every individual purchase decision of a customer creates a more positive planet. And I think this is also so important. And I still remember when we had the first talks about that. Of course, we knew that it's more sustainable, but how we can put a trustworthy number behind these calculations. And therefore, we then worked with the Research Institute of Fraunhofer to really creating a more credibility perspective on the numbers. Because nowadays, I think every company mentioned to be green. Even oil concerns are now green companies, right? So every corporate is green, they have a green logo, and they're now green. So we really have to also differentiate what is really sustainable and what is not sustainable. And I think this is something which we created. And what we really want to do is we want to, with refurbishment, turns yesterday's tech into tomorrow's climate win. So this is a bit of also the perspective that we had.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes people think that it's just one product that they buy. But if you would think about all the stuff that you buy, and if you could save 80% of CO2 from all of that, climate change would be solved, right? So you have, as consumers, a massive impact on climate through the stuff we buy. And through choosing refurbished, you can actually reduce your CO2 footprint significantly, especially if you do it across different categories.
Yeah. And maybe coming to the perspective, because we both worked at global corporates, really driven in this perspective. Can you maybe elaborate a bit about what is the difference between a corporate and a scale-up startup? So how also scale-ups and startups can lead change, right? And can create something different than the status quo that maybe the corporates have driven over the last couple of decades.
Yeah, we're not even focused only on the corporates, but also on policy, right? And what we said a bit earlier already, and I think it's right now in the news, very, very unfortunate, but I think that politics will not solve it for us, right? I think big corporates will not solve it for us. I think we as individual humans will solve it. And what is amazing about the times we live in is we as individuals can actually create companies very quickly, scale them very fast, and through it have very tangible impact very quickly. And if you think about how the world always evolves, it's always about individuals taking charge and doing something, right? And I think we're a great example, but many other startups and scales out there are other examples of how society and how our world actually changes through the action of a couple of individuals of founding a business, then getting amazing people on board, and through that driving lasting change in society.
And I think about entrepreneurship was always about ambition. And when I remember when we started, we had this big, fantastic vision and goal to place one refurbished product in every European household. And it's a huge number. You shared already kind of the numbers of units we already sold. But I think it also shows that we are on the right track in this direction, right? We're going in the direction of moving there. And what we have built with Refurbed in our team, I think, is something really out of the ordinary. And it goes to show that startups really have the power to make a difference and create change. So what I would also really like to know is about what were your most important aspects why startups really matter in this change.
Yeah. So I think that startups don't wait for permission. They just change the system. Right? And they build something that's better than what was before, and through that the whole system changes. And this is what we did, what many others did as well. Yeah.
And I think also one important aspect as well for me is also the mission-driven team. Because I personally believe that you can only be successful as a whole company if your team stands behind the idea. And what I also really learned over the last couple of years is this passion of the individual people, colleagues of ours working with us, that they can do with their work time something positive. A lot of people, my personal opinion on this is a lot of people are still working in jobs where they don't really like what they're doing. And if you think about how much time we're spending in our jobs, it's really frustrating if you don't like what you're doing. So for me personally, one of the most heartwarming moments is always when, we have our office weeks, and then we're standing in front of our teams and talking about the achievements that we did and how we work together. And a lot of times people came to us and told us, it's so amazing working with you all and to do this positive change on the environment, because everyone wants to live in a better world. And creating an environment where this is possible and where people can strive in this environment, I think is something which every other entrepreneur should aim for. Because if everyone loves what they're doing a better job. And then at the end of the day, we're coming back to the flywheel, because then most likely will be a more successful business.
Well, we now talked about, the successes that we had and, how great we are. We also have done many mistakes. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, of course, I think failure is a really important aspect for success, because you have to embrace failure to understand what you have to do differently in the next time and improve. And one of our really important Refurbed principles is iterate, iterate, iterate. So also, never give up and never be happy with the status quo, but always try to improve. And in the beginning, you will improve by large percentages, and maybe at one point you only will improve by little percentages, but every change will create something different. And looking back or reflecting a bit on what we've learned over the time, a couple of things come to my mind. One is, for example, that we I think under-expected a bit the awareness factor we had to create for refurbished products. So the trust element, because for us, and as we said at the beginning, I think also partly for our family and friends, it was a logical choice. It just made sense, right? And why not everyone is doing it? But learning that we really have to educate customers and explaining them what refurbished products are, why they can trust them, creating, for example, the 30 days test period, the warranty aspect, really calling the customers down. Still remember, we have from the first day on, we had a hotline where everyone can call us. So it's not just an email communication, but you can call and you have a human being answering to your questions. I think this was a really important aspect. But also when we had our first expansions, I still remember we often tried in the beginning to kind of copy paste our German cultural perspective on how we're selling products to then the Polish website, for example. And I think there was also a really fast learning that cultural differences are really strong, and marketing messages and communication has to be adjusted depending on the culture, on the market, on the behavior of people. And now we have built up an expansion playbook, which allows us to really efficient launching every new country, where we understand or learning about the culture, learning about the people, what is important, even which payment methods are important, which marketing messages are important, which delivery is important, to really be as efficient as possible for the new market and tailoring our specific idea directly on the market. Do you have any other points that you want to raise here?
The one thing that was interesting is that in the beginning, I think thought that sustainability alone is an even stronger driver. We learned that quickly, but I think it was very important, because what I said earlier already, but I think it's really true, is the combination of price and sustainability ultimately made it really, really interesting for a lot of people. And the way I would phrase it is that people change habits when it makes sense for them, right? When it makes sense for them personally and for the planet, then it's even better. But as a consumer company, you have to really find something that makes sense for the consumer. And this is something that is very important, and something that we sometimes also underestimated along the journey.
Yeah. And when you want to point out, let's say, one or two things that, you believe went as best as possible, so where you're most proud of, what would be the 2 or 3 points?
I think, first of all, we built an amazing team. We have super smart people that work together really, really well. The second is that we are really true to our principles. We're very transparent about our principles within the company. We really live it, but we also, are using them as a very strong guiding post in where we want to go. And the third one is really the scale of what we've achieved as a company, right? And that scale ultimately makes many things much easier. It's much easier to get great people on the team. It's much easier to spend money in marketing if you have a lot of customers. It's much easier to build a really great product if you have a lot of users on the website. And so that we generated this scale ultimately was a big unlock for the future and the success we had.
Yeah, and maybe before we look ahead in the future, one important aspect I think would be great to talk about is our culture, because I personally believe that our culture is something really special, and that is what the main reason probably why I'm waking up every morning and I'm so motivated to go to work, and I love my job, and I love to spend time with my colleagues around in the office or where we are located in. So can you maybe also talk a bit about, like, what is your perspective on our culture? How difficult was it to build it up, but also to retain it? I mean, also change happened from office culture to remote work. Can you elaborate a bit maybe on this point as well?
First, what I think is really interesting is that the culture we have as a company is really a mirror of the relationship we three founders have. It's you, me, and Jürgen. The relationship we have is a very strong mirror to how we work as a company. And there are a couple of things that I think are very important. First, we're very data driven. We really like to take decisions based on facts and not our feelings. And this enabled us to be very collaborative. Because if it's not about who feels what the right answer is, but if we just work together to finding the right answer, you can work together really collaboratively, and there are no politics within Refurbed. And it's something that I absolutely love because, as I said, I worked for McKinsey, so a lot of how big corporates work, and I think politics really kill companies. And it's something that we've been very, very careful to prevent from happening. And then the third one is the remote first aspect, where we work together, again, very collaboratively, but not in the same office, because we were able to build up processes in a way that actually enable that to still have also the relationship building moments that I think are super important. And I know you're a big driver of all of this. Maybe you want to talk about how we're doing this.
Yeah, happy to do so. So, I mean, I think like the remote setup for us created in the beginning, of course, a totally different work environment. I still remember when we were a bit forced to move into remote because COVID happened and the lockdowns. And so we moved to remote setup, but we realized really fast that it still works amazingly. So it creates flexibility for all people. And I also think that we have such a diverse team, also a lot of family people with their families and take care about the kids. So giving them the flexibility about not having to commute to work every day makes it really easier for them to live their lives, right? So this was an important aspect, but then for us it was really important, as you said, how can we still keep this amazing culture? How we can keep the situation that we spend time together, that we are matching with or we're discussing about our personal lives as well if we want to. And so it was really about how we can still bring people together, because we didn't believe in a 100% remote culture with no face-to-face time. So we created the office weeks, which means that 2 times a year as a whole company and 1 time a year a whole department is meeting in Vienna for a whole week. And I think this is something so special, and I personally love it because it creates an environment where everyone spends time together. We do workshops, we do team activities, department events, fun activities, our big office party always on Thursday nights. So this, I think, is a really important aspect to meet also the colleague behind the work colleague, so the human being behind it. Because personally for me, also having a dinner with someone and sitting next to them makes totally different conversations than being in a Teams call, right? And having just 45 minutes for a conversation. So this, I think, is a really important foundation for the success of the business and for the culture, and something which we also, as you said, as founders really try to drive, because we believe that this is one of the most important aspects. Culture is the heart of the business, and culture creates the success. So I'm really happy to further enhance this, and looking forward also to the next office weeks that we're having with our teams together, because it's always one of the big highlights of my year at work. And maybe now moving towards the outlook and the future, what is your perspective on 2026 and beyond?
Yeah, we as a company, we've always been growing along 3 different dimensions. One is new countries, right? We started in Germany and Austria, now we're in 12 markets. So 2026 means we go into many more markets. Second one is around new business models. We've been able to add more and more business streams to Refurbed. We started just with the transaction, right? A consumer buying a product from a seller. What we've built is an ecosystem around this. And this is something that's fascinating, because it ultimately lets us create much more value for both sides of the marketplace. And also in 26, we'll add actually more of these elements to the ecosystem. I cannot mention them now, but it's going to be very interesting for both our sellers and our customers. And the third element for us is always around new categories, right? We started with smartphones, then we added more and more electronics to it, then we went into household, kitchen, kids, sports, and we're going to also add more categories in 26 as well. Again, cannot talk about it, but it's going to be an amazing new product category where I think it's going to be super great for our customers to have even more choice of the circular economy.
And I will also not reveal any one of these, so no worries. But what I can still say is that also on the policy side and regulation side, there are some really important aspects happening in the near future. So as I said, like before, the right to repair regulations, it's also about more accountability for manufacturers, so that hopefully we're strongly moving from a circular economy as a nice to have to a must have. Because we also need this if we want to fight climate change, if we want to change how this planet is. We have to do our work here, and I can promise you, and of course every one of our colleagues, that I personally, but also we as a company, we do our best to really change the regulation towards a more circular world, a better planet for all of us. So then also, you know, your little son has a better planet in the future. So of course, this is, I think, something which we always want to achieve.
Exactly, and I think by 2030, the circular economy will not be an alternative; it will be the standard, and this is what we will have to work for, and this is something we have to achieve as a society. And ultimately for us, it's very important that, you know, with all the growth that we have, and obviously with all the financial metrics we're driving for as well, is that the mission at the end of the day stays the same. We want to drive the circular economy, and we see ourselves as the driver in this whole industry for the sellers and also for the consumers that we ultimately serve.
Yeah, I think this is exactly the future that we want to build, and to empower people of living more sustainable, consuming more sustainable, and really thinking about the smarter choice of their purchases, which we want to enable. So hopefully this will really drive change as well, and we getting to 20 million, 30 million orders, to much more than 2 million customers. And so I think this is our goal for the future. So let's go in this direction.
Yeah, it is. And ultimately, as I said before, if we want to empower people to live more sustainably, we want to make it as easy as possible for them to have affordable and sustainable products. And it's also important for everyone to understand that every purchase is a vote. And every time you buy something, you choose what you want, how your planet should look like. And ultimately, buying refurbished just creates a better system. It means a system that is circular, where resources are really reused again. And ultimately, our mission hasn't changed, but our scale really has.
Yeah, and I think like really important for also all the listeners, your choice today shapes the planet we live tomorrow. And this is, I think, something which is so important, right? It's about choosing refurbished products, supporting circular policies, talk about the impact that you create, really understanding what consumption really means, because in the end of the day, sustainability isn't sacrifice. It's really the smarter choice of consumption. And this, I think, is so strong and so important to understand this, and which impact every individual person can do, because we only can do change if we all do it together. And I think this is something which you really have to create. And so, I'm really thankful for being part of the journey together with you, but also, of course, with all of our amazing team members. And I'm really looking forward to what's next and all of the amazing milestones we will achieve in the future.
Yeah, thanks, Kilian, for the last 9 years. Thanks everyone at Refurbed, and obviously everybody who supported us on the way. And yeah, it's going to be another exciting 9 years, and let's go.
And happy birthday. Thank you. Let's go.
Okay.